Hi, I'm Maude Standish from Fullscreen, and this is my partner, Jessica Sutherland from AT&T. We're here to talk to you guys a little bit about the updates and what we've been doing with the AT&T Hello Lab program, which is a content-based program. One of the things that we've kind of been thinking a lot about, and I think that we're all here for, is because we know that advertising is changing. What's fascinating to me is that it's not so much that we're kind of leading the change, it's definitely that we see the audience is saying, no, you have to change for us, especially the younger audience, the millennials. One of the things that when you kind of ask millennials about ads that you instantly see is that they not only do they avoid them and they block them, and we always talk about this, but even when they do see them, about 84% say that they don't even like them or trust them. So there has to be a new way of communicating with this audience. When we first started working with AT&T, one of the things that we were really focused in on was trying to think about advertising a little bit differently. To kind of go to it and say, hey, what is something that we can provide our audience that isn't necessarily for just us? So if the ad could both service the brand needs and also the audience's needs. I'm going to have Jess just tell us a little bit about kind of the initial brief that your team gave to us.
Yes. So one of the things I love about working with Fullscreen is that whenever they come to us with an idea, it's always insights-based. And so we set out to essentially find new ways to connect with a younger audience where, basically our business as usual advertising just wasn't doing it. We also set out to create connections with consumers, and so we didn't want to just serve an ad and look at the video view rate or the click-through rate. We wanted to actually create engagement. And we knew that there are a lot of ways that AT&T does really well moving people through the very lower part of the funnel, but we didn't have anybody coming in at the top part of the funnel. So it was about creating these connections so that when they are ready to make a purchase decision, they can move through, and through all of the crazy ways that our behaviors are tracked. They're ideally engaging in story and in content, and then when they are ready to purchase, they're getting a contextual message later. So that was really our brief. And when actually, Maude, I think this was your idea, but Hello Lab has been about finding new ways to say hello to this audience. And so Hello Lab is essentially our charge is to find new ways to connect. And so our KPIs are different for every project. Every project is different. Every campaign is different. But I think as Ben said earlier, the way that we connect in a lot of ways is through what this consumer holds valuable, and that is storytelling and experiences. It's not necessarily through the traditional means. So we partner with Fullscreen to create a bespoke set of programs throughout the year, and we're going to talk a little bit about a series that we created together. Last year we were here presenting Guilty Party, and we're here to talk about Guilty Party again, but again, the really important thing I think for us is this is insights-based, and that's what we love about programs like these.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that's so great about working with you guys is because there's so much information that you guys have about the audience, we kind of combine the information that we have together and kind of do a deeper dive into some of the insights. I think one of the things that you always say to us is, sure, tell me, the basic things about millennials, but what is it that they really need and what do they really want? And kind of getting to that deeper insight. This year or last year, one of the things that we started to notice was that there was something that was changing with this audience. And a big thing that is actually happening, despite it being kind of the most connected generation ever, is there's actually a loneliness epidemic. And that is true for the US in general, but it's more true for these younger generations, specifically millennials and Gen Z. One of the things that was so fascinating is because these are the kids that have grown up the most connected and have all of these followers, and you would think all of these friends, but they actually are the people that are most likely to say that the number of confidants that they have is zero, that they have nobody to actually reveal themselves to. And the amount of people that in America say that they have no real friends has tripled since 1995. So basically since all of this social media stuff has happened. What's been fascinating is a lot of the think pieces, which I'm sure we've all seen, about this really kind of focus in, and they say, okay, this is so social media's fault. It's all, and they put it right at the doorstep of social media and how young people engage. Phone. Yeah, or your phone. Yep. And what was fascinating for us is that when you dig deeper, it actually isn't necessarily about social media or your phone at all. It was about meaningful connection. One of the things that we kind of started digging into a little bit was, in fact, what happens is So meaningful connection can be anything, right, where you're actually telling someone about yourself. So one of the ways when we were talking to a psychologist about it, they said to us, hey, if you go out and you say hi to a neighbor, that's not a meaningful connection. But potentially if you say hi and, oh, I have dreams about being a writer and all of this, and you guys bond about that, that's a meaningful connection. What's fascinating is social media doesn't deprive us of meaningful connection, but we don't naturally do it in that space. But the meaningful connection, whether it happens in real life or in social media, actually has the same ability to combat isolation. One of the other fascinating, and I won't go into all of the research that we did, but one of the other fascinating things that we found was that also entertainment has the ability to kind of combat this feeling of isolation as well. But what was so fascinating with that too was it can't be just any entertainment. It has to be entertainment that you think you see yourself in. So obviously with issues of representation, which is something that AT&T has also been taking on with their mentorship program, we wanted to make sure that we were telling stories that would invite people to also connect with them and also see themselves and be able to kind of combat that sort of lonely space. So this kind of all led us into our strategy. And one of the great things about kind of working with AT&T is that we really co-make everything together. But our strategy became to kind of create the future of connected content by innovating with AT&T products and services. Well, we thought that this strategy was kind of distinct from some of the things that we saw out there was that we saw a ton of branded content that was amazing. And we saw a lot of really great campaigns. But what we weren't seeing, or social media campaigns, but what we weren't seeing was the campaigns that really combined both for a specifically youth audience. We knew that our audience, especially young females, weren't getting serviced for this kind of interactive entertainment, and we wanted to make sure we were filling that white space specifically for them and inviting them in. So we created a slate of interactive shows that were designed to be seen on social media, but also engaged with directly so that you could feel as if you were part of the story in real time. We're going to show you, Jess mentioned that last year we talked a little bit about Guilty Party. We actually got to do a season 2 of Guilty Party this year. We have this anthology kind of way to it. This year we took on the idea of truth and lies and kind of teaching actually youth audiences connected back to AT&T's CSR program, media literacy. But we'll show you a trailer of it, and then we'll talk to you about some of the updates that we did to kind of make sure that we were even more focused on this community building aspect.
You're all suspects. Suspects in the arson that destroyed my office and left a student in a coma.
We need to talk.
Somebody in this room started that fire.
Why don't you tell me where you were during the fire?
Shut up! There will be only one A given this quarter, and that will go to the student who solves this crime. As for the guilty party, you will have to suffer the consequences of your actions.
If I had to take a guess, I'd say...
We're all liars here.
So as you can see, that existed on YouTube. So the way that rolled out, even though it looks kind of traditional, is that it actually had 8 different episodes that were considered traditional episodes. But then in addition to that, we did 65 character vlogs. So all of the characters would have a weekly update where they were talking directly about their experience with what was going on in the mystery. The story played out in real time for the audience, so they felt like they were in it. The idea was to have it be almost like they were at the college observing all the drama, part of that communication, part of the students, but not necessarily the ones that were in the dead center of it. In addition to that, we made over 17,000 pieces of distinct social content for it. It was a very busy summer. It was a busy and we also did, because of Jess's love also of true crime podcasts, we made a true crime podcast. The podcast was actually the first ever podcast hosted by fictional characters but interviewing real experts. So you see the podcast in the story of the show, but then you could also listen to it and get real expertise on kind of these issues. In addition to that, we also had a writer's room that went live every day and would talk directly to the audience as if they were the characters. So they got to ask the characters questions, consider what was going on, and be part of the heightened drama. I think one of the things that we were also most proud about this year was that we created a Google Classroom. So in the show, the series actually takes place over the course of a quarter in college. In every episode, you would see like a snippet of what they were learning by the professor who was teaching them about the history of lying and kind of the science of truth and media literacy. We took that into the Google Classroom, and we had actually the professor lectures there, and we had about 2,000 students sign up for it and actually complete homework on a weekly basis, give us video assignments and all of that stuff as well.
The innovation just was fantastic, and what was so great about it is if you only wanted to go and watch episodes, you could, but you could also go much deeper if you wanted to. And I think you said it best, it's not about necessarily a traditional product placement. It's not about seeing the phone. It's not about seeing, you know, the AT&T logo in the bars, you know, with 4 bars or whatever. We're really trying to create awareness of the brand and make a meaningful connection. And so, yeah, that stuff's in there, but it's not about minutes on screen and it's not about verbal mentions. We're just really trying to create authentically meaningful connections. And you also didn't talk about your genius casting idea, which was that all of these actors were influencers, and so we had built-in awareness and built-in reach. Just by virtue of who was participating in the series.
And I think the other thing that's important to maybe mention is that each of the influencers was connected to a different demographic that was underrepresented in media. And so they were bringing in, we had a trans community, you know, the African American community, kind of bringing in different facets and having communications
Reflecting
with each
the
other.
audience. The idea is that, you know, we want them to see themselves in this work. We don't want, you know, our casting to be tone deaf, our storylines to be tone deaf, and that's where the research comes in, really. And millennials and Gen Z are just inherently diverse, and so that's what should be reflected.
And they were looking for places to share. I think one of the fascinating things that we've always kind of talked about with this program actually is that not only do they connect with the characters, but they kind of create their own community. We also went into Discord, which is sort of a Slack for fandom, and had our characters in that space as well, talking directly to them. About 3,000 various young people came into that. The thing that was fascinating to me is that they started a Guilty Party Gay-Straight Alliance, remember? And so they actually started a fandom-based Gay-Straight Alliance, and the community still keeps meeting with each other. So the show's been done for 6 months now or something, and they're all still connecting with each other, and we can see them kind of still supporting each other in different school situations that they might not always have that same kind of support. So the next show that we're going to show you is really different. I think one of the things that we started talking about was the importance of life stage, and we're starting to focus on Starter Pack. Do you want to talk a little bit about Starter Pack?
Yeah, Starter Pack is a show basically rooted in internet culture, as you could probably gather by the title. But it also deals with the tricky stage in life when, and again, this was all insights based from our research, where this audience is coming out of school and is trying to get a job, but yet doesn't have experience to get the job, but needs the job to get experience. So it's that tricky time. And so it was really interesting. I'll talk a little bit more about it. We also had kind of a similar approach to how we cast the series, but what came out of it was really interesting. We thought the meme culture would be, you know, the thing that popped, and it was really the life stage storylines that popped.
Yeah, and we'll show you a clip, our trailer for that too. But what was fascinating is we went into it thinking, oh, this might be a really interesting moment to be talking about kind of some of the issues that are happening in meme with, you know, blackface happening with the GIFs and all of that kind of stuff. And we actually cast different influencers and also different actual meme creators, so that this wasn't just something like advertising people going and making a show about internet culture. It was actual internet culture coming together and co-creating the show with us. And so we'll kind of take you into that as well for just our trailer.
Is your job not exactly what you expected?
You're still here. I thought we fired her.
And are your coworkers a little crazy?
Picture it.
Are you stuck hanging out with your ex and his weird friends because you agreed to curate a meme museum, but you actually hate memes? Just me? Cool.
Can't believe I used to paint your toes.
I can't do this.
And cut. That was perfect.
I think what was so fun about that, and that trailer actually doesn't do it justice, is that one of the things that we did is we integrated memes and internet culture into all of the footage, so it had a really different look and feel, and it felt like internet. Obviously, it was on Facebook Watch, which was kind of a fascinating place for us to test and iterate. We had traditional episodes, but we also did a thing where we kind of, inside the storyline, is our main character doesn't like the idea of being on social media, so she's actually being tracked by this documentarian group, and they were following her around, and we made that documentary separate, and that was available on social, and all of the characters had social channels as well. And so some of the things that we've done is have some great results too. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, I mean, again, it comes back to engagements for us, so we kind of feel like anybody can pay for views, and we're not about, wanting to just, I think, check in on the typical KPIs. So engagements, we were at, I think, at over 100 million engagements for both shows. The video views were in the stratosphere, but for those who went really deep, it meant something to them. And you know, then we just randomly, not even by our own, by our own press team, ended up in the New York Times as one of the series to watch on Facebook Watch. Because, as I'm sure you all know, it's an emerging platform, and so it was, you know, it was a test and learn situation. The innovation that we always strive to bring to each of these projects is really what it's all about, and sometimes that means taking, you know, risks and innovating on platforms that, you know, are not quite there yet. So, so it was an amazing experience, and then randomly we also ended up on Jeopardy. So we've really
yeah, that was a big moment for our team.
Really hit the big time when we're a Jeopardy question.
Well, yeah, and that's kind of all we have for you guys in time. But if you guys have any questions, feel free to find us afterwards, and we'll tell you in detail about more of this stuff that we've been doing.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.